Hi, Winnie. Pleasure to be in touch. My name is Giacomo Franceni. I'm a founder and CEO at SupplHi. I'll have the chance to illustrate in the next few minutes what SupplHi is about, the problems we solve, some of our customer success stories. But first of all, a bit of background about myself. I got exposed while I was a management consultant at the Benin company for a few years, 6-7 years, and got exposed to supply chain issues, in particular in industrial B2B. And that's where the idea of SupplHi started. I wanted to create something unique together with other ex-colleagues, and end of the story, we ended up creating a unique SaaS solution for B2B equipment and services, critical supplies. And we wanted to be driven by two principles in doing so. Keywords on our customer side and the buyer organization sides are efficiency and compliance. And these are, in ultimate instance, critical processes within a corporation, especially if you look at the industries where we play at. We are talking about industrial manufacturing, oil and gas, fertilizers, chemicals, utilities, shipbuilding, infrastructure, railways, and steel and metal. So these industries are very relevant. They account for more than 30% of global GDP, and they are also responsible for more than 20% of CO2 emission. And it's not a chance that SupplHi started in Italy, that it's very much characterized by industrial manufacturing that also ties back to a strong level of engineered products and services, and much of it is about quality in the design, and also very happy to be hosted on your channel that touches back on Renaissance, and that level of craftsmanship has been creating long-lasting supply chains in the later centuries. So these industries are kind of special because they deal with critical supplies, and supply chain and procurement accounts for more than 50% of company revenues. So the supply chain below is definitely, I'm going to use very traditional keywords, but fragmented, global, made out of thousands of suppliers. We have customers with 30,000, 46,000 suppliers. And majority of them, in our records, more than 90% of the suppliers are medium more enterprises. That, once again, it's a key strength of these supply chains. Maybe some specific works, foundries, forges, mechanical treatment. And within this context, our customers need to know who does what. So how good is that supplier? They need to formally qualify a supplier. So there is a formal qualification process in place, different shapes, different levels of complexity. They need to evaluate the performance. And in the last 3 to 4 years, we saw an escalation into macro topics, ESG, so to measure the ESG of a supply chain, and the carbon footprint. So that's why we created dedicated modules and tools within our solution. Then obviously compliance, scouting, always need to enlarge supplier base, and risks as an ultimate result. So these were...
Giacomo, question. The suppliers you're tracking, are they mostly for direct materials, so industrial products, or are they more on the indirect paper supplies?
No, we deal with both, but obviously some level of uniqueness is on the direct one, also because it's very complex to tackle that segment, and we wanted to create a solution that then obviously has benefits also for the indirect. But our core started with the direct. Now we are able to host them both, and that's what we do for customer. Also because even on the indirect, you need to know more about your supplier. That goes beyond a presence of a certification or a compliance check.
That's great. I'm glad to hear you're tackling the more complicated direct side.
Yes, that's where we started. And we didn't want to create another individual tool, another individual platform. That end of the story brings to a spaghetti-like equation, no? Where the supplier has to enter multiple buyer side platform. And especially this information expires very quickly. No? So we wanted to create an industry network. So that's what we are also. We are a platform, we are a network, we are an industry standard with high level of configuration, and we are a SaaS. So the benefits of having SupplHi in the between as a catalyzer doesn't preclude all the special needs of complex buyers. Our typical customer is a 5 to 10 billion corporation to 15 billion corporation that operates globally and that wants us to integrate with ERP systems such as SAP, Oracle, and with procure-to-pay tools, where to do all the downstream activities of tendering, contract management. And that's why also we had to become very modular in what we do. So we cannot bring a monolithic approach to our customer, and we have customer that just pick SupplHi for a specific functionality or module. And then we are very flexible in the system integration. That is one of our pillars, including the ability to become a supplier golden record, especially across multiple ERP systems. But we have some classics that were at the core of the solution where we started 6 years ago. So the register, the qualification management, performance evaluation, and scouting. And this second pillar grew very quickly in the last years and months. So the sustainability part, I'll show you more very quickly on platform. The carbon tracker, that is the most innovative module app that we have, that is a way to measure and to estimate this so-called the famous scope 3 of the supply chain that matters a lot to our customer. Then obviously the typical compliance check and risk monitoring. Risk monitoring is changing in shape in our customer. It's not anymore simple, I would say, accounting of risks, but there are more and more risk owners that need to take action and also to create improvement action. So that's why we have a set of productivities up that can combine, and obviously we do integration. We also provide a single supplier, a digital identity to the supplier. And obviously we match, especially majority of our customers have SAP, and we are able to integrate with SAP World. And also we are very happy to be part of the SAP.io family, and it's one of our main partners at the moment.
Question on, what do you find? Customers use you as a sourcing tool when they're looking for new suppliers, or more as they already have suppliers and they want to measure their performance, sustainability performance, and other performance? What do you find
Depends. We have customers that, for example, this is a shipyard, 6 billion revenue shipyard. They have about 12,000 suppliers. And in this case, they adopted us for all the modules, and we are upstream to a procure-to-pay platform and to the ERP. Some other cases, we are just chosen for scouting purposes or for performance evaluation or for sustainability. Also, we are able to export the data that are generated upstream on our platform, for example, into Ariba or in any other tool. So we have to be flexible because the application landscape of our customer is complex, and we just want to create value to them when needed, and then maybe grow during the utilization during the years. And also that's part of the benefits that we deliver. So this is an example of a business case. It's a 3.5 billion euro revenue EPC contractor. They have 30,000 suppliers, and they had some issues about technology, new needs on qualification, and the new emerging needs on sustainability and performance. And this is the business case that they estimated before adoption, and then it has been confirmed after a couple of years of utilization, and we are able to deliver more than 40% savings compared to the traditional individual approach. So that's where we are, and obviously it's a network. I can show you on platform that is constantly growing. Currently, very important to mention, we have a free ISO certification that are nowadays minimum requirements to operate in the sector: 27001, 17, and 27018. And our platform currently is hosting about 68,000 suppliers from 110 geographies. And very important to say, since we truly believe in the concept of industry vertical and supply chain driven by a global champion and national champion, we felt the need when we started to create a standard categorization that is kind of a Rosetta Stone, a common language in a fragmented industry. Then obviously you see we host the individual categorization of each customer, but we were not happy with the UNSPSC, for example. We wanted to truly differentiate based on the competition out there in the market. So, for example, for us, it's not a simple process pump. Pumps mean 60, 70 different subcategories. And you go down at a very technical level, also linking back to technical standards when present. And now we are at revision 18 of this categorization. And also along the years, we took several notes in the way of giving a shape to the Rosetta Stone, the common language. Some other, like indirect, obviously are more intuitive, for example, logistics. But even here, as you can see, one thing is transport of goods, totally different is contract logistics, when you can have very specialized quarantine management, pharmaceutical management, dangerous goods. And that's the level of complexity that we manage, and that we wanted to, you cannot simplify too much because our critical industries. And this gives possibility to customer, for example, to immediately scout for, and this is just one of the modules, to scout for new suppliers in accurate categories. With a click, you get exposure basically to all the suppliers that matter. We are not talking about millions. Here we are talking about a finite word. And then you enter, you know which one has your ERP code based on the synchronization. You enter a vendor profile that is very deep in terms of, obviously we have the basic data, we have visibility on the different locations, might be more than one, we have a code for each, but the corporate structure is very important, but where we really differentiate, and all these we are also able to integrate with Dun & Bradstreet, data provider, but where we go very deep is on the capabilities area. So we standardize what is needed to be asked through a free of charge registration to the supplier. And here comes the benefit to the supplier, because he is asked to provide, for example, the sub-suppliers in the procurement section, and he provides this information once for the industry, for all the customers that are leveraging on the platform. And every information goes online after only our quality assurance, and obviously all the data have a versioning system also for audit purposes. We provide comments to the supplier, and this aspect also has been highly automated, but also we complement with people knowledge on some very specific aspects.
So during COVID, did you find people looking for new suppliers quite a bit? Or...
Yeah, it's more than expected, actually. Scouting per se is a business, potentially. There are two main drivers. One is local content, that is having local suppliers, and also a very diverse base of supplier. For example, you need to operate in Brazil, you need to operate in Angola, so very critical geographies, and you need to know who is out there and to have a reliable list. And again, it's not a world made of thousands, it's rather few hundreds that are the one that matter to you. Another one is mainly on, this involves also indirect purchases, like a logistic operator locally. Then you need to give turnover to your supplier base, but that's a more traditional scouting need. Yeah, and while operating on this space, we invested more and more energies during last years on ESG that are definitely pillars of these industries since ever. But nowadays, the critical aspect is to measure, because if you can't measure, you can't improve it, and that's where our customers are. So we created, co-designed with about 15 of our customers some guidelines on what to be asked to supplier. Obviously, we source as much data as we can from public information, but ultimately we need the supplier to get registered, and being free of charge, it's very inclusive, especially on this sustainability aspect. Any supplier can register. But the ultimate objective, as I was saying, is to measure, because only by doing so, and for example, comparing the performance of a supplier versus the average of the pressure equipment manufacturing. So we are comparing apples with apples. You can show to the supplier itself where it stands and what are the strengths and what are the improvement initiatives that can be then as a challenge, can be accepted by customer, and there is a dedicated area for these.
What are you collecting there? Carbon emissions, the water usage, the waste? Tell me what you cover, try to capture from that.
Yes. So we really wanted to cover a 360 degrees of sustainability. As you know, it's a broad topic, and more and more people are becoming expert one day after another, but in reality requires some knowledge. That's why we joined our group of customer, and we ended up covering obviously we can go deeper on some aspect, but all the key elements that range from energy efficiency, pollution, waste management, social, equal opportunities, health and safety is a safe harbor for our customer, and governance. But definitely environmental is the one so having highest level of gaps and the complexity. And that's why we're working also now with the banking system that is adopting our metrics, because they need to be sure to have to address funding, the so-called green finance, to suppliers that in some cases are even quite small for them, for a bank, but to really support the development of ESG strategy and improvement.
From a customer
Carbon emission.
From a customer perspective, is the E part most important? E versus S versus G? What's most important?
Yeah. So we are able to also, the platform is very flexible, so we are able to run a custom algorithm. So if we have a customer, for example, that wants higher incidence on some criteria or wants to add custom criteria, custom question, we are able to host it without any issue. And nowadays also the focus is moving towards carbon emission. That's why we invested on what we call carbon tracker. Less than 2% of the suppliers went through a formal audit on carbon emission. There are certifications, but are complex to achieve. And frankly speaking, we don't have enough assessors globally. So we wanted to create a simplified model, yet obviously compliant and solid enough to generate estimates by family of supply. And once again, it's good to measure, but the most important part is to discuss how to reduce the carbon emission, because the measurement is just a step to improve. And that's where we are with our customers. So here there is a lot about supplier engagement. Obviously, you cannot do this exercise with your entire supplier base, but at least you move from the so-called secondary data to supplier specific data. And then you select your target population, and we support the onboarding of a supplier and the appropriate data filling and the calculation behind. So here it's more frontier, but we see a strong traction because the buyer truly depends on the supplier, especially on scope 3 emissions. And if you don't get supplier-specific data, you will never commit your organization to reduce your overall CO2 emissions.
Right, right.
So this is just a brief overview. We have multiple modules. You can launch initiative, evaluate performance. You can go on qualification. Risk management is now a trending topic, but I'm happy to take any question from you also, Vinnie.
No, this is great. Like you say, you can't cover everything in 5 minutes. You've done a very good job in providing that overview.
Perfect, perfect. My pleasure. And in terms of positioning SupplHi nowadays, it has been recently recognized by, for example, Spend Matters, that is an independent institution in the space of procurement technology, as a leader, where obviously in a supplier relationship management and risk management, that is our space. And we—
This is Jason. This is Jason, right? Spend Matters.
Yes, correct. Jason and team. And we were extremely satisfied, obviously, by the analyst score, but also by customer score. So our customer love what we do, and we love them back in the opportunity to co-design and constantly develop a sophisticated tool for their space. And look, these are great solutions, what you see on the left, but our strength is in being uniquely specialized on supplier management in critical supply chain. And we also are aware that other supply chains will need a higher level of sophistication in the future. So we are co-developing with other supply chains, other verticals, our solution that has to go by verticals, by industry verticals once again.
This is excellent. Thank you for the overview.
Thank you for your time and questions. And it's a pleasure to be hosted here. And I can talk you for many more examples or success story, but it was just a way to give you a brief introduction.
Thank you for the introduction.